The massive screen in Earth's United Defense Command Center lit up with an incoming transmission. Admiral James Walker stood straight, his weathered face reflecting decades of military service. Around him, the command staff held their breath as the first alien contact humanity had ever received began playing. The being on screen had gray skin and wore elaborate golden robes. Its 4 eyes blinked in sequence as it began speaking, the universal translator working overtime to convert its musical language into English. Greetings, primitive species of Sol 3. I am Grand Emissary of the Eternal Galactic Empire. We have come to offer you the generous opportunity of joining our magnificent civilization. Walker's jaw tightened. 20 years of defending Earth's colonies had taught him to recognize a threat wrapped in polite words. I am Admiral James Walker of the United Earth Defense Force. We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization. The alien's upper eyes narrowed. You misunderstand, Admiral. This is not a negotiation. Our empire spans 10,000 systems. We have peacefully absorbed countless civilizations into our perfect order. Your species will be no different. The command center remained silent, but Walker noticed several officers discreetly activating combat protocols. Humanity had prepared for this moment ever since they first reached for the stars. Perhaps we should discuss this further, Walker suggested, buying time as hidden defense platforms powered up throughout the solar system. Our species has much to offer through peaceful cooperation. The Grand Emissary made a gesture that the translator identified as dismissive. Your primitive technology and limited understanding of space travel indicate you have nothing of value to offer the Empire. We have observed your pitiful attempts at colonizing your own system. Your acceptance into the Empire is a gift. Walker thought about the hidden fleets scattered throughout human space, the weapons Earth had developed in secret, and the centuries of warfare that had shaped human history. These aliens, for all their advanced technology, had no idea what they were walking into. I must consult with Earth's leadership before making any decisions, Walker said carefully. Surely a civilization as advanced as yours understands the need for proper diplomatic protocols. The alien's response came with what humans would recognize as a condescending smile. You have one of your planetary rotations to prepare your leadership for integration. The Empire's generosity has limits. As the transmission ended, the command center burst into activity. Colonel Mike Peters, Walker's tactical officer, approached with a datapad. Sir, long-range scans confirm a large fleet hiding behind Jupiter's largest moon. Their technology is advanced, but they don't seem to understand basic stealth protocols. Walker nodded. They've never needed to hide. Send word to all colonies. Broken Arrow Protocol is now active. And get me a secure line to the Defense Council. 20 minutes later, Walker stood before the gathered military leadership of Earth. The room held veterans of the Mars colonial wars, the asteroid belt conflicts, and countless smaller skirmishes that had forced humanity to advance its military technology at an incredible pace. Ladies and gentlemen, Walker began, the Empire has no concept of warfare. Their expansion has been entirely peaceful because no species has ever resisted them. They think they're dealing with primitive savages who will be overwhelmed by their technological superiority. General Thompson, her combat medals reflecting the room's lights, smiled grimly. They don't know that humanity's greatest advances have always come through conflict. Every weapon we've developed, every tactic we've mastered, every breakthrough in shields and stealth, all because we had to fight each other. Exactly, Walker agreed. They see our visible technology and think we're barely space capable. They have no idea about our hidden capabilities or the true size of our fleet. The Defense Council spent the next hour planning Earth's response. As the meeting ended, Walker looked out at the night sky through the reinforced windows. Somewhere up there, an empire that had never known true war was about to learn why humans had spent centuries trying to avoid it. They had given Earth 24 hours. It would be more than enough time to prepare their surprise. Captain Tom Miller adjusted his dress uniform as he stood before the Empire's High Council. The massive chamber, with its floating platforms and crystalline walls, was designed to impress visitors with the Empire's power and glory. But Miller had seen more impressive sights during the Battle of Mars. Behind him stood his small team, each carrying secured data tablets. Before him, 50 alien council members looked down with what he recognized as boredom. The Grand Emissary from the First Contact sat in the center, still wearing those elaborate golden robes. Primitive species representative, you may present your case for special consideration, the Grand Emissary announced, though I remind the Council that Earth has already been scheduled for integration next month. Miller squared his shoulders and began the presentation they had carefully prepared. Honorable Council, I am here to give you a warning, not to beg for special treatment. A ripple of translator-assisted laughter filled the chamber. Miller ignored it and gestured to his team. They activated their tablets, and holographic images filled the air around them. This is the Battle of Thermopylae, Miller said as ancient warriors appeared in the air. 300 soldiers held off an empire of millions. This is the Great Wall of China, built to defend against invaders. These are the trenches of World War I, where millions died fighting over a few miles of ground. The council members shifted uncomfortably as more images appeared. Modern battles, space conflicts, the Mars colonial wars. In our history, we have fought over land, resources, beliefs, and sometimes simply to prove we could win. Every major advancement in human technology came from warfare. Our first rockets were weapons. Our space program began as a military race. Our best medicines were developed to save soldiers. The Grand Emissary raised a hand to stop him. Yes, your species has a regrettable history of internal violence. This is precisely why the Empire must guide you to a more civilized existence. Miller smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. You're missing the point, Emissary. We're not showing you this because we're ashamed. We're showing you because these wars taught us something your empire never learned. He pressed a button, and new images appeared. Hidden shipyards building vessels far more advanced than what the empire had seen. Weapons testing facilities. Defense systems that put the empire's technology to shame. Humanity hasn't had a global war in 100 years, Miller continued, because we learned to be better. But we never stopped preparing. Every weapon we developed fighting ourselves is now ready to defend against external threats. One of the council members leaned forward. Are you threatening the eternal empire? Primitive. No, Miller replied calmly. I'm warning you. Every species you've encountered simply surrendered, so you never developed real military tactics. Your ships are powerful but predictable. Your shields have never been tested against weapons designed to fail them. You've never fought an enemy who already had countermeasures for your technology. He let that sink in before delivering his final message. We've studied your empire since you entered our detection range 5 years ago. We found 14 critical weaknesses in your defense systems. We have agents in 20 of your core worlds. And unlike you, we know exactly how to fight a war. The chamber erupted in angry shouts, but Miller raised his voice over them. You're not our first empire, and you won't be our last. Every empire in human history thought they were invincible, right until they fell. We're giving you one chance. Leave human space. Don't return. Because if you force us to fight, we won't stop at defending ourselves. As guards rushed into the chamber, Miller looked directly at the Grand Emissary. You have 48 hours to withdraw your forces. After that, we'll show you what humanity does best. And trust me, you really don't want that. The last thing Miller saw before his team was escorted out was the first flicker of fear in the Grand Emissary's 4 eyes. He hoped they would be smart enough to listen. They weren't. The Empire's Third Fleet moved through space with complete confidence. 200 warships, each larger than Earth's biggest cities, approached the human colony on Europa. Their commander, High Captain Dex, had overseen 30 peaceful planetary integrations. This would be no different. Primitive defense ships detected, his sensor officer reported. 6 small vessels, holding position near Europa's surface. Dex made a gesture of amusement. Send the standard warning. When they surrender, begin immediate integration procedures. But the human ships didn't respond. They simply waited, barely visible against Europa's icy surface. Dex found their behavior puzzling but dismissed it as primitive fear. All ships, advance, he ordered. Prepare integration beams. In Earth's hidden command center, Admiral Walker watched the Empire fleet's approach on his tactical display. Next to him, Colonel Peters managed the complex timing of their trap. They're still following standard formation, Peters reported. No deviation from the tactics we observed in their previous integrations. They haven't even activated their combat shields. Walker nodded. Send the signal to Europa base. Tell our ships to hold position until my mark. The Empire fleet moved closer, their massive ships casting shadows on Europa's surface. When they reached optimal firing range, Dex gave the order to power up their integration beams, devices that would disable all technology on the human ships in colony. That's when Walker spoke one word. Now. Europa's surface exploded, not with fire or destruction, but with movement. The ice sheets split apart in precise, pre-cut sections, revealing dozens of hidden launch bays. Hundreds of human fighters poured out, so many that they looked like a swarm of angry insects against the backdrop of space. Impossible, Dex shouted as his tactical display filled with new contacts. Where did they? He never finished the sentence. The first wave of human fighters hit his fleet's right flank, their weapons punching through the unprepared ship's minimal shields like they weren't even there. Raise combat shields, Dex ordered, but the humans had planned for this too. The 6 small ships they dismissed as primitive suddenly accelerated with impossible speed, their hulls splitting open to reveal massive electromagnetic pulse weapons. Before the Empire fleet could power up their main shields, the EMP bursts hit. Ship after ship lost power, their emergency systems unable to handle weapons they'd never encountered before. Status report, Dex demanded, watching in horror as his tactical display showed red icons multiplying across his fleet. 30% of the fleet has lost all power, his second-in-command reported, fear evident in his voice. Our shields are ineffective against their weapons. They're using attack patterns we've never seen before, striking from multiple angles simultaneously. Walker watched the battle with grim satisfaction. Launch second wave, he ordered. Activate the minefield. The Empire fleet, already struggling against the fighter swarm and power failures, suddenly found themselves surrounded by thousands of previously invisible mines. The devices had been waiting in Europa's orbit for months, totally undetectable by Imperial scanners. This is impossible, Dex whispered as his ship shuddered under another hit. They're primitives. Their technology is inferior. They couldn't have prepared all this. But they had. Every fighter strike was precisely calculated. Every EMP burst targeted critical systems the humans had identified long ago. Every mine was positioned to drive the Imperial ships into carefully prepared killing zones. In Earth's command center, Walker gave his final order of the battle. Spring the net. The remaining human ships moved in perfect coordination, herding the surviving Imperial vessels into a tight cluster. Then, the real trap revealed itself. Hidden gravitational generators activated, creating an artificial field that made standard Imperial faster-than-light travel impossible. The battle lasted less than 30 minutes. When it was over, the mighty Third Fleet of the Eternal Empire had been reduced to drifting hulks and scattered debris. Out of 200 ships, only Dex's command vessel survived, its communication systems deliberately left intact. Send the message, Walker ordered. On his crippled bridge, Dex received the transmission. It was short, in simple text. We warned you. This was one colony, defended by one battle group. Run. As Dex looked at the wreckage of his fleet, he finally understood true fear, and in the Empire's capital, the High Council was about to learn that their simple subjugation mission had become something else entirely, their first real war. The Empire's High Command Chamber had never seen such chaos. Reports of the Third Fleet's destruction played on massive screens while military leaders argued loudly. In the center of the storm, the Grand Emissary stood silent, watching their perfect order crumble. "Deploy the main fleet," he finally ordered. "All of it." The room fell silent. The main fleet hadn't moved from the Empire's core worlds in over 300 years. It represented nearly half of their total military power. 10,000 warships, each one larger and more powerful than those the humans had destroyed. The primitives caught one fleet by surprise. The Grand Emissary continued. "They cannot stand against our full might." In her hidden office, deep within the Empire's capital city, Director Anna Stone of Earth Intelligence watched the meeting through secured feeds. She smiled as she sent the coded message. "Red sky active." Across Empire space, sleeper agents who had infiltrated their society over the past 5 years began their work. Stone had recruited them carefully. Colonists who'd surrendered to the Empire in the past, merchant species who resented imperial control, and even some of the Empire's own people who dreamed of change. The main fleet was barely underway when their problems began. Navigation systems suddenly failed, sending entire battle groups in wrong directions. Communication networks carried ghost signals, making coordination impossible. Supply ships found their cargo mysteriously contaminated. "How are they doing this?" the fleet commander demanded, staring at reports of systems failing across his ships. "Their technology is primitive. We've seen their worlds." His aide, actually a human agent, kept his face carefully neutral. "Perhaps we didn't see everything, sir." In the Empire's capital, more chaos erupted. The central banking system crashed, then came back online showing massive losses. Defense platforms around core worlds activated their weapons and started targeting Imperial ships. Emergency shutdown codes didn't work. Stone watched it all from her office, coordinating the cyber assault. "Send in the next wave," she ordered through secure channels. Across Empire space, more sleeper agents activated. The Empire's leaders had never experienced anything like this. Their society ran on trust and order. The idea of infiltrators in their midst was foreign to them. They had no defense against an enemy who fought from within. "Status report," the Grand Emissary demanded. "Main fleet is scattered across 3 sectors," his military chief reported. "Communications are unreliable. Half our supply lines are broken. And we're getting reports of rebellions on 20 worlds." Rebellions? Impossible. But it was happening. Centuries of peaceful rule had left the Empire unprepared for resistance. Every system they created to maintain order now worked against them. Their own weapons turned on their ships. Their computers obeyed unknown masters. In Earth's command center, Admiral Walker received Stone's update. "The Empire's military command is blind," she reported. "Their coordination is broken. They're ready for Phase 2. Walker turned to his fleet commanders on screen. "All battle groups, execute Operation Thunderstrike. Hit every target Director Stone has marked. Show them what a real war looks like." Across Empire space, human fleets emerged from hiding. Unlike the scattered Empire ships, they moved with perfect coordination, striking critical targets simultaneously. Space stations exploded. Shipyards burned. Supply lines shattered. The Empire tried to respond, but their mighty main fleet was in chaos. Without central coordination, each ship group fought alone. Against humans who'd spent centuries perfecting the art of war, they had no chance. In his chamber, the Grand Emissary watched his perfect empire fall apart. "How?" he whispered. "How did primitives do this?" The answer came in a message that flashed across every screen in the capital. "We warned you. We've had 5 years to prepare. This is just the beginning." For the first time in its history, the Eternal Empire knew fear. And the war had only just begun. The Battle of Proxima Centauri would later be remembered as the moment when the Empire finally understood what real warfare meant. They had gathered their remaining fleet strength, 5,000 ships, for one massive attack on humanity's most important colony. Fleet Master Rex, their finest military commander, had spent weeks studying human battle tactics. He felt confident he had learned their tricks. His ships approached in a new formation, shields already at maximum power, crews ready for anything. Or so they thought. Enemy fleet detected. His sensor officer reported. Only 50 human ships, holding position near the third planet. Rex smiled. Finally, they had caught the humans without their hidden reinforcements. All ships, battle formation Delta. Begin attack pattern. Sir, his tactical officer interrupted. The human ships, they're changing. On the massive view screen, Rex watched in shock as the 50 human vessels started to transform. Sections of hull plating shifted and reformed. Hidden weapon ports appeared. Ships that had looked like simple freighters became bristling fortresses of advanced technology. In the lead human ship, Admiral Walker watched the Empire fleets approach. They're learning, he noted. Better formation. Shields up early. But they still think war is about size and numbers. All ships report ready, Colonel Peters announced. Metamorphic systems functioning perfectly. Operation Chameleon is go. Walker nodded. Send the signal to the mining bases. Let's show them another human trick. Rex was still trying to understand the transformed human ships when new alarms blared. Throughout the asteroid field surrounding Proxima Centauri, hundreds of what had appeared to be simple mining stations suddenly activated. Each one revealed massive weapon systems that had been disguised as mining equipment. Impossible, Rex whispered. We scanned those stations months ago. Sir, his tactical officer's voice shook. Those aren't regular weapon systems. They're gravity weapons. The human ships opened fire first, but instead of normal energy weapons, they fired devices that created localized gravity wells. Empire ships found themselves being pulled in multiple directions. Their perfect formation broke apart as ships struggled against forces they couldn't resist. Counterattack, Rex ordered. Launch all fighters. But the human ships were already changing again, their hulls flowing like liquid metal into new configurations. What had been large weapons platforms seconds ago were now agile fighter interceptors. They met the Empire fighters with devastating effect. How are they doing this? Rex demanded. No species has mastered metamorphic technology. In his command ship, Walker watched the battle unfold exactly as planned. Launch Phase 2, he ordered. Show them why humanity stopped using fixed-form ships a decade ago. The Empire fleet, already struggling against the gravity weapons and transformed human ships, now faced a new horror. The asteroids themselves began to move. What they had thought were simple rocks were actually disguised human vessels, powered down to avoid detection. Rex watched helplessly as his carefully planned formation dissolved into chaos. Human ships struck from all directions, their transforming hulls making them impossible to predict. Gravity weapons pulled his vessels into killing zones. Every time his gunners thought they had a target locked, it changed form and attack pattern. Send the retreat signal, Rex ordered, finally accepting defeat. But it was too late. The human ships had herded the Empire fleet exactly where they wanted them. At Walker's command, the gravity weapons fired simultaneously, creating a massive distortion field that ripped Empire ships apart. The battle lasted less than an hour. Of the 5,000 Empire ships, barely 500 escaped. As Rex's crippled command ship limped away from the battlefield, he received a transmission from Walker. Now you understand. Every battle teaches us. Every defeat makes us stronger. Run back to your empire and tell them. This is what happens when you force a species that has mastered war to use everything they've learned. In the Empire's capital, the Grand Emissary received Rex's report with growing horror. The humans hadn't just beaten them. They had made their most powerful weapons and tactics look primitive. For the first time, the Empire truly understood Captain Miller's warning. They weren't just fighting a species that knew war. They were fighting the masters of it. The Empire's high command watched their holographic star map with growing despair. Red warning symbols covered nearly a third of their territory. Supply lines broken, communications cut, colonies in rebellion, and everywhere, human forces advancing with unstoppable precision. "We've lost contact with the Centauri Defense Fleet," a junior officer reported. "All shipyards in the outer sectors are destroyed. Remaining forces are scattered and unable to coordinate." The Grand Emissary's golden robes were wrinkled now, his 4 eyes sunken with exhaustion. "How many ships do we have left?" 3,000 operational vessels scattered across 50 systems, but our supply lines are completely compromised. Director Stone's voice cut through the room as every screen suddenly activated, showing her face. "Your fuel refineries are sabotage. Your ammunition factories are burning. Your repair yards can't fix ships without parts." The Empire's leaders stared in shock at the human intelligence director speaking from their own secure systems. Stone smiled coldly. "Did you really think you could keep us out of your networks? We've been inside your systems since before this war began." In human space, General Robert West prepared for the final push. His fleet of 500 ships represented humanity's newest weapons and tactics. Each vessel could transform into 15 different configurations, their crews trained to fight in ways the Empire had never imagined. "All battle groups report ready," his tactical officer announced. "Operation Endgame is go." West nodded. "Begin the advance. Show them everything we've got left." Across Empire space, the humans struck with devastating coordination. West ships appeared seemingly from nowhere, using technology that made the Empire's stealth systems look primitive. Each strike targeted critical infrastructure that Stone's intelligence network had identified. The Empire attempted to respond, but their ships were operating blind. Their advanced targeting systems couldn't lock onto the transforming human vessels. Their supposedly unbreakable codes were already compromised. Every defensive plan they created was known to the humans before they could execute it. "Another colony world has declared independence," the reports kept coming. "The Merchant Guild has switched sides. The mining consortium is refusing to supply our ships." The Empire had never faced rebellion before. They didn't understand how to fight their own people. But humans did. They had spent centuries learning how empires fall, from the inside out. In desperation, the Grand Emissary ordered their last resort: a massive counterattack against Earth itself. 3,000 ships, everything they had left, gathered for one final strike. "If we can't defeat them," he declared, "we will at least destroy their homeworld." But humanity had expected this too. As the Empire fleet approached Sol's system, they found something impossible. Earth was gone. Where the planet should have been, there was only empty space. Scanning malfunction. The fleet commander asked desperately. "No." Admiral Walker's voice came through their comms. "We moved it." The Empire fleet suddenly found itself surrounded. Hidden gravity generators activated, creating a massive field that trapped their ships in normal space. Then they saw Earth, the entire planet, appear behind them, having been hidden behind advanced cloaking technology. "You thought we only hid ships and weapons," Walker continued. "The truth is, we've been able to hide entire planets for years. We just never had a reason to show it before." The battle that followed wasn't really a battle at all. It was a demonstration. Human ships appeared from all directions, their weapons and tactics unlike anything they'd shown before. They had been holding back, saving their best technology for this moment. In under an hour, the Empire's last fleet ceased to exist. In the High Command Chamber, the Grand Emissary watched the final reports come in. Their military was destroyed. Their economy was collapsing. Their subject worlds were declaring independence. Stone's face appeared on their screens one last time. "We warned you to run. Now you don't have anywhere left to run to." The Eternal Empire had finally learned why humans had tried to warn them. But the lesson had come far too late. The Imperial Palace's Grand Hall looked very different now. Gone were the floating platforms and displays of power. The golden decorations had been stripped away. In their place stood simple metal tables where the remnants of the Empire's leadership faced the human delegation. Captain Tom Miller walked into the hall, the same officer who had delivered the warning months ago. But now he wasn't here to warn. He was here to accept their surrender. Admiral Walker and Director Stone flanked him, along with General West. The Grand Emissary, his golden robes replaced by simple gray clothing, stood to greet them. His 4 eyes showed defeat where pride had once lived. "The Empire, we submit to your terms." Miller nodded, remembering their first meeting. "You should have listened. We tried to warn you." "Yes," the emissary admitted. "We see that now. Your ships could have reached our core worlds weeks ago. Why did you wait?" "Because unlike you," Walker answered, "we understand what happened to empires that pushed too far, too fast. We wanted to give your outer worlds time to declare independence naturally. Less bloodshed that way." Director Stone activated a holographic display showing the new galaxy map. The Empire's once vast territory was now divided into dozens of independent regions. Only their core systems remained. "Your client species are free now," Stone explained. "They've formed their own governments. Some have already asked to ally with Earth. Others want to stay independent. We'll respect their choice." The emissary looked at the map with sadness. 10,000 years of peace and order, gone in months. "No," Miller corrected him. 10,000 years of stagnation, ended by necessary change. Your peace wasn't real. It was just enforced compliance. Real peace comes from understanding and respect between equals. General West stepped forward with a datapad. "These are the final terms. Your core worlds retain independence under a constitutional government. Your military will be limited to defensive forces only, and you'll join the new Galactic Council as equals, not rulers." The Empire's leaders looked at each other. They had no choice, and they knew it. One by one, they pressed their hands to the document, marking their agreement according to their customs. As they signed, Walker turned to Miller. "Remember when you told them they weren't our first empire?" Miller smiled slightly. "They finally understood what I meant. Every human nation that tried to rule through force eventually fell. We learned from their mistakes. That's why Earth doesn't want an empire. We want allies." After the signatures were complete, Stone addressed the former Imperial leaders. "You're probably wondering why we didn't just destroy you completely. We could have." The emissary looked up, curious despite everything. "Because that's another lesson humanity learned," she continued. "Real victory isn't about destruction. It's about building something better from what remains. Your people have skills and knowledge that could benefit everyone. We'd rather have you as partners than ruins." Walker activated another display, showing construction ships already rebuilding damaged worlds. "Your technology and our military experience, combined with the diversity of all species, together, we can make something better than an empire." The emissary watched the reconstruction efforts with growing understanding. "You didn't just beat us militarily. You defeated us by being better than us." "No," Miller said firmly. "We defeated you by understanding war well enough to know it's the last option, not the first. We spent centuries learning that lesson. Now it's your turn." As they left the hall, Miller looked back one last time at the former Empire's leaders. They had wanted to civilize humanity, believing peace came from power and control. Instead, they had learned that true civilization meant having the strength to win a war, and the wisdom to find a better way. The empire that had never known war had learned its lesson, and the humans who had mastered war had shown them a path to real peace.